what's next for Jose Aldo? And we just have to answer that question. Just have to ask the question, not answer. My bad. We just have to ask the question because he's only here to win the belt. He made a very compelling, plan before the Merab incident. I mean, it's a bit mean or rude to call it the Merab incident, but coming into the fight against Merab Dvalishvili or Dvalishvili, he said that the plan will be to beat Merab, fight for the title, win the title at Rio de Janeiro in that pay-per-view, and retire in the same building that you beat the champion in, retire in front of the same crowd that are coming in there to watch you win. And it's sad because the first step of that whole plan was to beat Merab, and we all know he did not get to do that. He did not get to beat Merab, therefore plan failed. But then I ask you, what's next? I mean, he might not get to be in that Brazil fight card. I mean, I would probably say 2 good fights, like 2 right fights against the 2 right names, against 2 right guys, could really give him the title shot, because he is at his point in his career where he's only here to fight for the belt and to win the belt, and Merab Dvalishvili was first step to win the belt, then retire, and it failed. I mean, it's rude to say it failed, so let's just say he did not succeed. And if he did beat Merab, that would potentially give him the shot. So if he didn't, then who's next? Who's next if he did not beat Merab? Who's next out there for him to beat? Who's next? Because you gotta ask that question. Can't ignore it. And Jose Aldo might miss that opportunity to be at Rio de Janeiro, then retire, right? So then, what's next for him? Or who's next for him? And the reason why I'm saying what's next and not who's next is because retirement, and a lot of people say this, that Father Time is truly undefeated. And man, it is goddamn right. Eventually it will bite you in the ass. Eventually it will just grab you in the ass, then pull you down. And Jose Aldo, at a period of time, knew that if he wanted to stay in this sport, he's gonna have to evolve. And I say this all the time. The sport is always evolving. It's always constantly evolving. The competition, the fighters, the techniques, it's always evolving. And if you want to stay in the sport, you have to evolve with the sport. You have to evolve with the sport, because eventually it will pass you. The sport passes you, and you're not the new kid in town. You're not the next big thing anymore, because the sport evolved. past you. And Jose Aldo really, he really reinvented himself. He knew that he had to, otherwise he will not win the belt. But then, you can do that. I mean, you can only do that for a period of time. Like, eventually the sport will still surpass you. It will, eventually it will. And for everybody, it's true. It is true. Like, Khabib, like, we all know if Khabib were to be here, like, if he were to stay here for a very long time, yeah, he would lose. Eventually, he will. We've seen Kamaru Usman get knocked the fuck out by Leon Edwards. You can't tell me that, that there's such thing as forever. The only thing that's forever is evolution. And it just so happens that Jose Aldo was evolved. I mean, he evolved, but the sport evolved past him. The sport past him, and including Merab. Back in the day, he couldn't just, work these wrestlers like he is back then. Now it's a different type of wrestler. That constant pressure wrestler. It's all very different now. But the reason why I'm considering retirement here is because if you're only in this sport to win the belt and you've failed first step is beat Merab. The second step is to fight for the title. You can't retire, you can't win the belt, you can't fight for the belt without first beating Merab Dvalishvili. And man, we all know what happened. It did not work. So what is he gonna do now? What is next? Is it retirement? Because you just have to consider retirement, because it's a real thing. It is a real goddamn thing. And I feel as though when Jose Aldo did not put the gloves down, means that he is not gonna retire. When you're gonna retire, you've planned out for it. For example, Luke Rockhold, he said he's coming back here to win the belt. If he's not gonna fight for the belt, whether he does beat Paulo Costa and this next fight is not the champion, he's gonna retire. And if he does get beaten by Paulo Costa, he's also gonna retire. So there's two things, and one of those things happened to Luke Rockhold, prompting Luke Rockhold to retire. Now, Jose Aldo did not plan that, meaning retirement was not in his head. No matter what, he was gonna stay in the sport to win the belt. I think so, because for him to still be in the sport despite 2 losses at bantamweight means that he's serious. This is just 1 loss. He's had 2 losses at bantamweight right now. Now 3, but previously it was 2. Then all of a sudden he went on a 3-fight win streak. I mean, like, maybe he just goes back to the drawing board and, just throws retirement off the window. Screw retirement. We're gonna get in there. We're gonna grind. We're gonna evolve. We're gonna do everything to win, and we're gonna do it with, like, I mean, in my opinion, 2 right opponents could potentially get him the shot. Maybe even if Sean O'Malley wins, maybe even a fight with Peter Yan if he does win against somebody else. Because you can definitely, like Dana White definitely wants Jose Aldo at Rio de Janeiro. He is the king of Rio de Janeiro. You're not making a fight card at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil and not put the king in there, which is Jose Aldo. You can't. You cannot do that. And Dana White wants to make this fight, so he can. He can if Jose Aldo does win 2 fights. But the question here is, does he want to win? Does he still have that in him? And in my opinion, he does. He had 2 losses when he came to bantamweight. Never gave up on himself. Gone off in a 3-fight win streak. Beat Marlon Chito Vera, that is now being considered in the conversation for #1 contendership. He beat Pedro Munoz. Like, the guy is on a tear. He also beat Rob Font. Like, he never gave up on himself. He never, got beaten at bantamweight and went, "Oh man, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna do this." He may just go back to the drawing board after this Merab fight, and then come out better, and win, then fight for the title, retire at Rio de Janeiro. That could really happen. But the question here is, does he want it to happen? Is he willing to did what he did prior to the win streak, the 3-fight win streak at bantamweight? Is he gonna do what he did when he had a 2-fight losing streak? Like, is he willing to do that? I mean, I'm not so sure, but I'm sure because, I'm not that sure, but I can assume because retirement was not on his head at that time, or at that night. If it was, the gloves could have been put in the floor, but in the canvas. But I don't know. Like, is he willing? That's the question. Is he willing to do what he did when he had the 2-fight losing streak? I think so. I have good hopes for Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo is a very well-respected guy. You cannot just disrespect the guy. The guy is a fucking respectful dude. He never did anything bad. He never did anything controversial. And I think he will. I think we'll go out there and go back to the drawing board and win fights. If not, well, that's fine. The guy is still a goddamn legend. You cannot take that away from him just because of that 13-second Conor McGregor loss. Jose Aldo is a goddamn legend. A living legend.